And hello, welcome to Mike Sports. I'm your host, Eric, joined as always by Landry. How you doing tonight?
Let's do it.
And I'm ready to go. This is going to be a good time. It's always a good time when we're talking sports here on Mike Sports. And tonight, we got an unofficial holiday coming up, the start of football season. The training camp started last week. We're going to have our first preseason game on Thursday night. It's going to be all about the Atlanta Falcons and the Denver Broncos. So we're going to get to see 1 to 2 solid snaps from everybody's starters. And then they'll all be out there and we're going to just be like, damn, when did real football start?
Yeah, right. I mean, look, the one thing we can say about this season is you get some early presents, but you also get some early duds because people start holding out in training camp, which always makes it's almost like free agency again.
Right. Yeah. You got to wonder. Yeah. What are guys going to be, how are guys going to be in shape? One guy, Ezekiel Elliott for the Dallas Cowboys, holding out, wants a new contract. And in one sense, I can't blame him for wanting to get as much money as he can because I'll always just have that opinion for every player. Get yours, But in the other sense, I also can't knock Jerry for what he's saying either. He had, in my opinion, some very insightful comments when talking about how in today's NFL, you don't need an all-time, a mega rusher in order to be a Super Bowl team.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that. I mean, if we look at the Saints, we look at the Rams. The Rams rotated a whole new running back in. They got lucky. I mean, like the guy had a little Jerome Bettis into him and whatnot, but the point is he wasn't a all-star running back. It goes to show that a lot of teams that got into or close to the playoffs, including Minnesota and all them, none of them had these. No one had an Ezekiel Elliott, maybe other than the Rams. So if you take that into account, look at the team that won the Super Bowl. Their running back. It goes to show that you don't have to have a running back to be a star, but we can all agree having a great running back certainly isn't going to hurt you either. And as a Cowboys, and as a Cowboys fan, as I stated in the last time we did this, is my first comment towards that is I am in favor of if Zeke won't play, we trade him and get a bunch of picks and let him go be a running back somewhere else where he's probably not going to reach a Super Bowl. Likelihood he's going to get a team that can afford his room, and it's not going to be one of the big dogs that is headed back to a Super Bowl because most of those teams are already at cap spending limits. That's why they're as good as they are. But what I will say is I've always approached football and players from are you an appreciating asset or a depreciating asset? And running backs to me will always be a depreciating asset. Now, maybe he's not as depreciated right now as he will be in 3 years. However, if you're putting me against the fence of a player who is an appreciating prospect like Dak, who in the end is someone who is going to be with you at minimum, if he is as good as we think he can be, 10 years. And Zeke, max, at his capability, 5 to 6 years, and he's already eaten through 2.5 of those, just about. So I look at that and I say, well, Dak's got to be paid first, not just because he's a quarterback. Even if we built the team around Zeke, I still look at it as you're a quickly depreciating asset. Not everybody's depreciating by nature, but yeah, if you're going to put my back against the wall, I'm going to go with the asset that's more likely to appreciate before they depreciate. Appreciate before they depreciate.
Yeah, I agree with you a lot in that because when you look at Ezekiel Elliott and all of my ego bias aside, he is a phenomenal running back. He really is. He's as good as he thinks he is. Mm-hmm. But the problem is he going to be that good in 3 years? Is he going to be that good is he going to be half that good in 5 years? And the answer to that question is probably no.
Right.
Whereas and I think he will be.
Yeah, and I think everybody listening to the show would probably say, look, Ezekiel Elliott holding out, I think what bothers me about players who hold out, I personally would have a problem watching my teammates be in training camp working and sweating their ass off, and I want more money. And then when I get it, I show up when the hard work's done. That bothers me from a principled, I want the respect of my male peers perspective.
Right.
But I also get the money aspect is you only get so many chances in the NFL to get your money, and you only last so long shelf life wise. This isn't a career. This is like a decade of your life, and then you're doing something else.
Yeah.
So I get
it.
I get
it. A retiring player one time say, he went from being a very old man in his profession in football to being a very young man.
Right. And the thing is I look at it from to me, the NFL is much more a brotherly love than any other sport. NBA, whatever. Yeah, whatever. I'll play with him because it makes sense to get close to a championship or whatnot. But, in the NFL, you have a lot of players who, because the roster is bigger, who are never going to see that. So you have a lot more like when you go through training camp with them, you do bond, you do build and whatnot, Whereas, in the NBA, look, you put LeBron and somebody good, they're good whether they go to training camp or not. I mean, they're good. In the NFL, you need more of an orchestra for everything to work right. And
when everything's going right, it's a great symphony. Like when you watch the way an offense works, it's a lot like a good musical. Like everybody's got to be in their right place. Everybody, like the timing of everything's got to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, I mean, like all respect due to the NBA, and like LeBron James can just walk in and just be like, all right, you know what? That's cute. We're all going to run these fancy, what do they call that play in Hoosiers? The picket fence.
Yeah.
That, and LeBron.
Dude, I haven't heard that in effing years. Holy shit.
And LeBron will just say, that's cute. Let me just get the ball at the top of the key and post somebody up and just impose my will.
Yeah. So let me ask you, so from my perspective, obviously being a Cowboys fan, Jerry Jones holds the cards in the Zeke system, but he does not hold the cards in the Dak situation, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Dak Prescott is the guy who's up next as far as the contracts go, which is why I was excited that the Eagles got out in front of it and paid Carson Wentz before either Jared Goff or Dak Prescott got paid. Because now Dak Prescott, Jared Goff are going to be looking at the Carson Wentz deal and say, okay, we deserve that, as opposed to Carson looking at it and asking for more.
Yeah, 100% agree. I have no argument.
That's got to be the number one priority on Jerry Jones's mind right now. So this whole Ezekiel Elliott thing, like, I feel like that has to be what the conversation is. Like, where Jerry would say to Zeke, look, man, we want you here, and we're gonna pay you to be here, but the number one priority is paying Dak Prescott because he's our quarterback.
Yeah. So, I was looking at. We had talked a little bit last week about quarterback rankings, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have the list right here according to NFL.com player poll. So instead of like the poll, like everything else, this is not the where they go by stats and everything. This is the players poll.
And I always like this. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious.
It won't be what we think. Yeah.
Right. So I'm curious what you think about this. So Tom Brady, number 1, Drew Brees, number 2, Andrew Luck, number 3, Patrick Mahomes, number 4.
Okay.
Phillip Rivers, number 5, Aaron Rodgers, number 6, and then Russell Wilson and Jared Goff. And I'll just stick with that. So right away, what stands out to me is Andrew Luck being above Patrick Mahomes. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I guess that's more of you proving it more than just 1 year. Patrick Mahomes gave us 1 year, and it was a great year.
Yeah.
But yeah, whereas Andrew Luck's proven it, and he's survived the devastating injury and came back and looked stronger than ever.
Now, what do you think? Phillip Rivers, Patrick Mahomes, Andrew Luck, and Drew Brees and Tom Brady above Aaron Rodgers in the players poll.
That's
the players.
Yeah, that's well, and I think some of that, back to a couple episodes ago where we referred to Aaron Rodgers as kind of a dick.
Yeah,
I think that's a reflection of.
I totally agree.
Don't want to put him that high.
Yeah, I was gonna say you could never get that from like a Vegas rating.
Right.
Aaron Rodgers would be way higher than that, but you let the players start talking about, hey, I kind of don't like this guy. He's kind of an asshole, so I'm gonna go ahead and lower that ass. Now it's one of those things. You might not like him, but would you want him in the last 10 minutes of your game? I would.
Absolutely.
It's like yeah. So from a fantasy standpoint, he's a badass. For an actual playing with him, he's an ass.
Yeah, just to crack the bad. Yeah, he's just an ass.
Yeah, you take out the bad. Yeah.
Training camp serious list. Other than that, though, I think it's pretty accurate.
Yeah. I mean, so I think training camp wise, there's only a couple quarterback positions that are duking it out. Fitzpatrick, as usual, You know, I think Fitzpatrick to me is like fucking magic. I don't know. This dude can have a magical year anywhere.
And the thing is, he can only do it for like 2 or 3 games. You just hope that you choose those right 3 games to play him. And then afterwards, you just say, okay, go sit on the sidelines and collect the rest of your paycheck.
Like, I had mad respect for Fitzpatrick. For one, he played in the Texans. Anybody that can survive the Texans O-line, I have mad respect for. But number 2 was when he came out in his damn leather outfit with a gold chain in his chest hair. I was like, this dude's legit. Like he gets how to enjoy the game and play like you're playing backyard football. Like, he just gets it. And I think that's why he is such a he is the number 1 backup that you can have in the NFL, period.
In my opinion, he's the greatest backup of all time.
Yeah, could be, man. I mean, I haven't really thought about that.
He couldn't ever be a starter. Now, Nick Foles, if he hadn't pursued the route of being a starter, I would have put him as
right. Okay. Backup. I don't know, man. Fitzpatrick, even with Nick Foles, I would say, Nick Foles magic with the Eagles system, but on another team, Nick Foles may not. But Fitzpatrick seems like, no, you can pretty much put him anywhere, and he's going to be successful on some level.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, and you talked about his attitude, the way it's like it's fun, it's back. This is a guy who went to Harvard and studied like real stuff, and so he's probably like, dude, whatever, man. This is just football, and I'm getting paid millions of dollars. And he's probably got so many investments set up. Like, he's never going to have to work another day in his life once he's done playing football. So he's just having fun. He's just like, what the heck do I got to worry about anything for?
So one of the things I was thinking about, I just popped in my head while we're talking about Ezekiel Elliott or whatnot. What do you think Jerry Jones is not fining Ezekiel Elliott for holding out right now? What do you think about that? Do you think he should be fined? He should be treated like any other player?
In one sense, I think it's a smart play on his part to try to keep some loyalty while they're building a bridge. Like, it's a way to sort of say, hey, look, I understand, we're having a grown-up discussion about a contract, but I'm being a bigger man here and saying, you know what, the normal protocol will be to fine you. We want to keep, this is my olive branch to you. I'm not fining you during this period.
Yeah.
And I think more owners ought to try and take that approach because you might gain some ground. Like, that can build some good faith there.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And a comment to go parallel to it, it's like John Gruden coming out and saying, I expect a lot more drama from Antonio Brown. He's kind of like, I'm embracing what Antonio Brown is. I think in a way Jones is like saying, look, I know I made some comments about Zeke better, get his ass in gear. But I embrace what Zeke is, so I'm not going to fine him because I think he's going to be the guy we want. He's going to show up at some point. And we're going to be good. I think it's the same thing John Gruden's doing during his camp. He's like, look, when I went and got Brown and wanted to bring him to the Raiders, I knew what came with him. So I expect that out of him. I think he's basically saying, I think he's a better player because he's like that. So let him be like that so I can win some damn games, Yeah.
And look, you don't get Antonio Brown thinking you're getting a Boy Scout.
Yeah.
You know what you're signing up for. And so I think it's better to just come out there and just embrace the situation. And just say, hey, we think we had a good, mentally tough locker room that is going to be able to handle this. And if we create a culture where this is more fun, and maybe we get more of the fun Antonio Brown and not the self-destructive Antonio Brown. Because I don't think you get the good soldier Antonio Brown.
Right. So, I always like to bring up something psychological or life coaching on this. And if you want to go check out my channel at lifecoachlandry.com on YouTube, go check it out. But one of the things I always like to say is, Antonio Brown, if I had to put it like in a life coach perspective, a lot of people get in relationships and they see things and they're like, oh my God, you're not who I thought you were. And it's like one of those, no, I've always been who I was. It's just you never paid enough attention to me to really know who I was, right? Antonio Brown is that guy that if you bring him to your team and you're like, this motherfucker's dramatic, I'm like, what weren't you seeing? Yeah, you have obviously not watched the person you picked because he is drama. He's talent, but he's drama. And it's one of those, you get so much time, in this world to look at the people that you want to be in your life. And I'm using this as an analogy of being on your NFL team.
Yeah.
And you decide, what kind of structure do I want? Do I want a peaceful, low-key relationship? Or do I like a little spit and fire and stuff like that? And I think John Gruden getting Antonio Brown, he's basically saying, I'll take a little spit and fire. I think that's going to energize and get my team on like a certain kind of mode. So I think he's embracing that drama. I think he's saying our locker room's going to have energy because of it.
I think he's saying in order to get the best version of Antonio Brown, we're going to have to embrace that. You know, he's going to go out there, he's going to showboat, he's going to have fun, he's going to be a little wild and have some of this diva-like drama. And it's better to just embrace it, because if you try to change him, just like use the analogy of a relationship, you're going to get like some bitter, quiet.
You're going to get what happened on the Steelers. He's going to say, fuck it, I'm out. I'm not fulfilling my contract. I want out. It's just like someone who gets in a relationship and is frustrated. Like, I want out. Like, forget it. You obviously don't like who I am. Why am I even arguing? I want out. Antonio Brown is that guy. I mean, for God's sakes, the guy, he painted his mustache blonde. Now, any man that can do that, you know that he has a wife that can't say nothing to him, because he's got that kind of personality that if you don't like who I am, take a step. Take a step. Hit the curb. I'm Antonio Brown. Every day I wake up till I go to bed, and I wake up and I do it again. He is that guy. And there's a part of me that was kind of like, dude, cut Amari Cooper and go get freaking Antonio Brown on the Cowboys. But I'm like, I can't have Zeke and Antonio having two troublemakers. But I got to admit, man.
To me, I just feel like there's just, like, I have a genuine respect for the fact that he is who he is. He's not ashamed of it.
He is not. He doesn't care to be hurt, because the way Antonio Brown, his personality is built from a psychological standpoint, is Antonio Brown is so comfortable who he is. He expects to be hated, disagreed with at some point, but he's okay with that because he will only surround himself with the people who go, no, I'm cool with you. So he says it's okay. It's kind of like I used to say when I was younger. I knew my personality and the way I go about life. I'm just going to be collateral damage. There are going to be people that are going to come, they're going to bang their head against my rock, and they're going to leave. But there are going to be the people who I'm going to meet who are going to stay and be very okay with things. Antonio Brown has that same type of personality. He's like, you can hate my game. You can hate the way I go about the game. You can hate my drama. But in the end, I produce. And just because you don't work with me doesn't mean there isn't something that does. And he found it. He's working with a coach who's like, dude, I embrace what he is. I'm cool with it. Let him do it. And he's like, this is what he'd been talking about the whole time. When I was on the Steelers, they were giving me so much crap about how I operate. Now I'm on a team who's like, we love the way you operate.
Yeah, I just think it's got to feel like such a great fresh start for him.
Yeah, no, totally.
It's like when you say the analogy of when you have a significant other who's stifling, and you don't feel like you can be yourself. And then when you break free from that and you're in a relationship where there's more positivity, and, it's like that breath of fresh air of just, the relief. You can be yourself and you don't have to worry about it.
Right.
And it's great. And that just cultivates more positivity, and that's going to create more loyalty, and that is going to create a better Antonio Brown.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And the thing with in the audience that's listening, I think, you're on the East Coast. So a lot of your audience from Philadelphia right now listening and whatnot, they are going to be more like, they're closer to the drama, right? Us down here, down south, we look at it like, if you have a stable team, it's one of those things where you get into that trifecta where you're kind of like, can you afford Antonio Brown? Or will Antonio Brown destabilize you? Or will he finally be the energy that you've always been lacking? And I think that's what you kind of come down to when you come to him. You have to make a psychological decision about your locker room, right?
Right. Whereas the Eagles, a similar instance with Terrell Owens, it worked fantastic for 1 year. The part of it, and I think they did have a strong enough locker room, the part that they didn't account for in that evaluation was how Donovan McNabb was going to accept the embracement of T.O. by the Philadelphia fan base.
Right.
They absolutely, if T.O. comes into Philadelphia now, he's embraced. And
it's funny, right? Because at the time, it kind of looked like T.O. was the problem, McNabb was the adult, and now over time, you're kind of like, nah, T.O. was a talent. We needed more of that.
Right. I mean, there's a lot I could get into. We could do a whole episode just on my take on the Donovan McNabb T.O. situation, but it's funny. Antonio Brown, in a lot of ways is very similar to that. Some might even compare, Brown's stay in Pittsburgh.
A diva receiver? Nah, come on. T.O. was the only diva receiver that ever existed. Receivers being divas, that's just like, I've never heard of that. That's weird.
So I guess we're forgetting about that guy from Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah. Well,
That guy
there's a lot I can forget about the word Cincinnati. I mean, who the hell wants to remember anything about the Bengals?
the Bengals.
Yeah, there's no Bengals love on this show. Like, there's just none. Like, there's no like, oh, they're doing really good. Look, one of the guys is from Katy, Texas. They're freaking quarterback Dalton, and I still am like, forget them. They come from my hometown. I'm still like, forget them.
Well, he did go to TCU.
Yeah, I had an ex-girlfriend that went there, so I have a hate for him again.
You went through a stage where you didn't like.
Yeah, I dated a girl from TCU. Now I hate him. I hate him double. In the show The Wire, he tells this dude he's so angry at this guy one time. He goes, "Bitch, I'm gonna kill you twice." And you just double down Dalton like that. I hated Dalton twice in a row, like within a split second. Training camp. Training camp's always weird to me because, first of all, it's in the heat. I'm in Texas. That kind of heat. I think of heat. I'm like, oh my god. I did 2-a-days in high school football and all that crap, right. And I think about the stuff, and I'm like, that's why I said there's a principle to it that just really bothers me when you hold out and your bros and your brothers are out there just eating dirt and sweating, and you're over here like, where's my money? And it's one thing if you get it solved within the first couple of days of camp. It's another thing when you don't exist in that camp at all the way through.
Like the Hard Knocks when with Darrelle Revis when he was holding out and
he shows up at like the last practice. Hey,
what's up, guys? I'm here to play.
Yeah, and I remember Rex Ryan in that show. He goes, forget it. If he's not coming, forget it. But damn, he sure is good. He's like, I sure would take him if he does show up, kind of. It's like in the NFL, unless you're the Patriots, every year you want anybody you can get to try to win that year. Whereas the Patriots are like, we don't need you because we don't win this year. We'll probably get it next year. They're like, we'll get 1 out of 2 no matter what. So,
right. But it's funny, like the whole like you talked about. It's something to be in that situation now. With the CBA the way it is, they don't do 2-a-days anymore. But still, like you're still out there in that heat, and it's something when you're just like, okay, like I understand you're going to get your money. Damn, dude, it's hot out here. We're all bonding together. We're all going through this, and you're just sitting over there, be like, pay me.
Well, I look at training camp somewhat like I look at preseason. There is a part of training camp that I'm like, they don't really need to do all that. You're going to have practices during preseasons and stuff that are basically training camps. So I'm sitting there going, training camp could probably be lessened. Preseason can be lessened. You can kind of combine preseason and
well, I'd be fine with eliminating a couple preseason games and having some more inter-team practice or more co-team practice.
Yeah. And I'm sure your Philadelphia audience has a different view than we do. Like I said, the heat there and here are probably two different things.
Last week when it was 110 degrees with like 90% humidity, I'm glad camp reported when it did, because if it had been a week earlier, we'd have had a few players, I think, dropping dead from that heat.
Right. Well, I mean, look, we certainly have had our share of deaths in Texas during camps and whatnot, and it's never something you want to hear. But, we talked about in our last show we did, I think that, the preseason should be cut regardless, just if you want to fit this new season idea and to go to 18 games. And, it makes a lot of sense that I'm curious, I didn't even think about this, but if the preseason's shorter, that would change people holding out, like when they're going to miss their check sooner. You wouldn't have the extra 2 weeks to hold out through. Right. You thought about that? I mean, that's a consideration. These guys are going to hold out for millions of dollars. Well, you're going to be missing that money sooner rather than later. And if you hold out for the whole year, you'll have 2 extra games you missed out on getting paid on. So it's like a double doozy now. Yeah.
Yeah, and and a lot of that's going to come down to how much are they going to now make guaranteed in contracts. Players are obviously going to want that adjusted. And, I mean, that's a whole different can of worms. I definitely get your point on the preseason. It can definitely be shorter. Training camp, I think, that's where you get most of your work done. And that's where I think coaches make more of the evaluations of who they like, who they don't like to keep on their roster than even preseason games. You see a lot of times where guys will, not play at all in preseason game. I'm not just talking about the veterans. I'm talking about like fringe players who maybe get injured or something, have to miss time in preseason games, but made such an impression in training camp that a coach will keep them because, hey, we like what this guy, brought to the table. So I think there should be, I think training camp is more where you pick out your fringe players even more than the preseason games.
Honestly, I've always felt like training camp is just to go, what kind of condition are our players currently in? I've always felt like that's really what training camp is. Let's see who's going to throw up and who's working their ass off and ready to go.
Followed the off-season program that we put together for them.
Yeah.
And who said, screw it, right now they can't find me for anything. I'm going to go out to Vegas. I'm going to go to Whataburger and eat up. And
hey, you're leaving out Cabo, where Zeke's at. Is that where he's at? He's in Cabo, isn't he?
Is he in Cabo?
Yeah.
I'm looking to you for all my Cowboy knowledge.
I'm looking up. Well, I told you I'm ready to let Zeke go. I'm kind of over what he's doing. I don't really care anymore. I'm like, hey, we can get like 3 good picks for him, and then the next draft, let's load him out.
Did you hear the Well,
yeah, Cabo. He's in Cabo right now. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if this is truly attributed to him, but I saw somebody say a comment that he said to Jerry Jones during the negotiations while they were yelling at each other, well, just trade me to Philly or something like that, which I'm not willing to give up any 3 first-round picks or anything to get Zeke. I like our situation just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was just curious.
Like, that's what I was going to say earlier is Zeke, being in Cabo is just bad optics on top of everything. And, it's one thing if you're like, hey, I'm right by Cowboy Stadium doing my workouts and everything. Like, as soon as we get this, it's like Dak. Dak is basically saying, I'm ready to get to camp. Let's get this done. Like, let's figure out the summer. Let's get this done. Zeke is like, call me when you got something better. I'm out. Like, Zeke is, to me, putting off a completely different impression. What I'd be doing if I'm Zeke is either practicing right in Dallas right now and saying, I'm right here working out. I'm going to be in shape. I'm just ready for this thing to get done. To me, that's the way you should be talking and the position you should put yourself in. I think Jerry Jones has shown in history.
Doing the sit-ups like T.O. and
be in the parking lot. Let all the press film you. Zeke is he would be smart to tread lightly, in my opinion, because although you're dealing with the GM, you're also dealing with the owner, and that's a different perspective. The owner is feeling slighted by what you're doing, not the GM. And Jerry Jones, like me and you talked, pre-show, is very. He's never been friendly to running backs holding him hostage. A lot of other positions can do it, but not the running backs. And we all know back in the day, Emmitt Smith held out for a couple of games, and Jones didn't budge much. They eventually came to the middle of the table, but Emmitt really didn't gain much in his holdout.
Now, I really think the only reason that Jerry gave it all is because the Cowboys lost those 2 games that he didn't play in. And Jimmy Johnson may have said something like, yeah, dude, get this done. Like,
and Troy Aikman. Troy Aikman said he was a big advocate of I don't know what the hell y'all are doing, but you're messing up my team. Yeah. And Troy, that's why I always respected Troy. Troy, to me, Jimmy Johnson really did luck out because Troy was literally like a second coach on the team.
Yeah.
He really was. He had that personality. And I always tell people, if you want to see what kind of personality he had, go watch the highlight reel and just the highlights of the Barry Switzer season and look how angry he is with Barry Switzer for not disciplining players right. Like, Troy Aikman is like a leader on the team and a coach at the same time. You really do win. The Cowboys were just lucky to bump into a guy like that during.
And I'm sure Barry Switzer probably looked at it like, man, this guy's a pain in my ass doing all that. Like, but he really did luck out and basically having another coach. And I think that's the reason why they won that last Super Bowl they did. Yeah,
I've always said, conspiracy-wise, Troy Aikman is who put the gun in Barry Switzer's back at the airport. That's what happened. I'm sticking to it. That's what happened. We got a lot of folklore down here when it comes to the Cowboys.
That Barry Switzer, he just ran too many plays out of the shotgun formation.
Yeah. In his it would have been pistol formation, but
maybe the sawed off shotgun.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Like, there's no other major holdouts really going on. Like, this has been a pretty low key holdout season so far.
What's going on with the Clowney holdout? Is he holding out? Is he?
So yeah, I honestly haven't even seen any information. I looked for updates on it today, and I don't see a statement by him or the organization. But it's safe to say, because there's no statement, that nothing has been resolved. But I'm also not seeing the animosity put out there either in the air. So maybe they're working on it, but they don't want to say anything until they're closer to what they're trying to accomplish with each other.
And it's funny, and I'm just sitting here as an Eagle fan watching the drama going on in Dallas, watching apparently the Redskins. I'm sure they got some injuries happening. The Giants with Golden Tate and apparently Daniel Jones looking like hot garbage in his training camp. And I'm just thinking, dude, the Eagles, very quietly, this is where you win the preseason, is by making sure no drama. And, Malcolm Jenkins, who is looking for a contract, didn't go to any of the voluntary stuff, said he would be at the mandatory stuff. And apparently there were some closed-door meetings between him and Howie Roseman. And while a contract's not done between the two of them, like, there's sort of an agreement. They know, like, it's going to get done. And so Malcolm Jenkins came as a full participant in training camp, knowing that they're working on getting him a new deal.
Yeah, I mean, we have some holdouts, but they're not like I said, other than Zeke and Dak, which is ironic that you have two major holdouts on the same team.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we got some other ones. You got Michael Thomas, the wide receiver of the Saints. I think did they reach the record deal? Right? Isn't that the record deal today?
Yes.
Like, yeah, 61 million guaranteed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's insane. But we also got Melvin Gordon, the Chargers. That's another one. Right. I think Zeke has kind of stolen the news from him, running back wise.
Poor Melvin Gordon, man. That guy never gets.
Well, honestly, dude, I thought the Cowboys might make a pitch for him.
Right.
I really did. I said, let's go get him. I was like, he's a star running back, and he'll cost half of what Zeke costs probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got I can't say his name, Yannick whatever on the Jaguars.
Yeah, that guy.
He was a good player. I think he had 29.5 sacks last season, or not 20 in his career last season. Mm-hmm. Well, that'd be nice. Yes, I was like, hell, shit, you can give up our whole defensive line. We'll take just that guy.
Right.
And then you got Trent Williams, the left tackle for the Skins, and then Clowney, which is obviously, I think once Zeke and Dak get solved, I think Clowney will be more the highlight of who's holding out if he's still in the holdout stage. Right. So, I'm trying to look at some information, see if I can find something on Clowney right now. He's not under contract, so he doesn't really cost himself any money. That's the good part for him. But he'd still have to wait till week 11 is how it works to report or miss a season entirely. Isn't that how it works, right? Yeah.
Week 11, you have to report or you forego the whole season of service, and then basically he'd still have he'd be in the same spot contract-wise.
Yeah, and I know if they tagged him, I think he'd make 15.4. Right. And if they don't, he'd make...
That's got to be his big concern, because think about it. Rookie deal, you get the 5th-year option, you get 5 years, and then you can just franchise him for 6 years, dude, that's pretty much it for a running back.
And think about it. If Clowney, if they don't tag him, he makes 17. So, I mean, you're talking about leaving $2 million off the table because they tagged him. Now, I would have some bitterness if they tagged me and took $2 million off my pocket. Yeah.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, and that's one of those things that, look, this is the way it was negotiated by your players' union. And I think it's things like this that could cause a real tough time in the next year when it's time to renegotiate the CBA. I'm just hoping that, I'm hoping there's no work stoppage, but right now it just looks like, man, there's a lot of distance there. The owners are making out pretty good on this. And they're going to have to give some and let the players, let the players win this battle.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the Texans, they did tag Clowney, if I recall, they did, which means he had till I think July 15th or whatever,
and then a long-term deal.
Yeah, and then that obviously passed, and that left basically him. That forbid him to basically negotiate with anybody else because they tagged him. You know, it's kind of funny. I mean, the NFL really does have the corporate style to it, where you can basically just say, "Well, here's your options: take it or leave it," or basically you're fired. I mean, it's kind of the way it works when you tag them in a lot of ways. And I can get players feeling like, "Look, you kind of smothered," but at the same time, I'm like, "Look, you know." Go in the NBA if you want to have all the power. The NFL is not a player power league. It's just not yet. I mean, I think they're doing better jobs at kind of like balancing that a little bit. But you got to be careful because you can pull a Le'Veon Bell and just say buy to $15 million. Like, yeah, no big deal. Bullshit. He slept at night and was angry. Like, I just lost $15 million.
Right.
I don't care how he's like, I made it to another team. I'm okay now. Bullshit. I don't know any man on this earth that goes, yeah, I'm cool, $15 million, I'll get over that. No way. Show me him. And I want truth for him injected in him before he talks to me.
Yeah, it's funny. I heard a conversation between Dan Klecko, former NFL player, and Ben Davis, former Major League Baseball player. And both guys in the Philadelphia area working at a local sports talk radio station. And they were talking, and they were going back and forth about the advantages of playing football and playing baseball. And Klecko's talking about, hey, real men play football, and yada. And Ben Davis just turns and looks at it and says, yeah, well, our CBA is better.
Like, let me just cut you off and shut this down. Speaking of baseball, just a side note, did anybody see the Pittsburgh fight last night?
Yeah, dude, that was crazy.
Yeah, I was like, man, go buy them cheap $5 Pittsburgh tickets because they always lead to something good.
Right? Like, that was freaking badass. I went into work this morning. First thing I do, I tell my manager, I'm like, dude, you got to YouTube this thing. Yeah. He goes on, he's watching it. As we're opening up the doors to the store, one of the guys walks in, and one of the customers walks in. He's like, dude, did you see that fight in Cincy and Pittsburgh? And like the three of us were all huddled around this guy's phone. We're watching it on YouTube on his phone, just going nuts. I
was at World of Beer with my woman, and we're sitting there looking at it, and she's like, okay, they're gonna get a fight. Oh my god! And she like, oh my god, where did? And like they just get fine. And I say, the dumbest thing that happened is when he went to punch him, he went to their dugout and just immediately got jumped. And I was like, you never go to the dugout. Like, call him out, make him step towards you, and get him.
I've got to respect that.
I don't know, man.
You
can respect it, or you can go. You gotta see wrestling, brother. You're an idiot.
I respect it because you're getting a beating. You better get one good shot.
I know. I was like, okay, I see some red, and then I was like, he gone. I couldn't see red anymore. He just disappeared. And then the manager, I was like, dude, you're going to have a stroke. Stop. Slow up, brother. You are. And then I saw him at the bottom of the pile, and I'm like, okay, I see why you're mad, but at the same time, you're working on an aneurysm somewhere. It's like he was shaking his mouth when he talked. It's like he was gritting his teeth, and the spit was coming between the gaps of his teeth. Like he was he was psychologically adrenaline. That was a pure testosterone throwdown.
And you know what I love about it? Yasiel Puig, who had already been traded.
Yeah.
He wasn't a Cincinnati Red anymore.
And he going to the Indians?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like,
the trade was already official. Yeah, and he was still ready to go there fighting for guys who weren't his teammates.
He's like, I'm bringing my blonde mohawk, and I'm going Mad Max to this mofo.
Yeah. You're not even my teammate anymore, but I still got your back.
Exactly. He's like, look, the Indians suck. Haven't you seen the movie? So I'm gonna go ahead and throw down here and make my final highlight of my life. I probably won't even have my name out there anymore.
He's gonna have Joe Boo there. He's Pedro Soriano.
Yeah, I saw some Twitter feeds about that going on. Anyway, circling back to football.
Always back to football.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's that time of the year. It's like jingle bells. I saw another subject today. They were talking about, if you could give advice to Lamar Jackson, what would you tell him going into the season?
I would tell him he's got to protect his body. When there are chances to dive forward to get the extra yard, unless it's for a first down or for a touchdown, don't dive forward to take the extra yard. Learn to choose your battles and protect your body because, hey, look, being an Eagles fan, I know all about it. most important ability is availability. You know,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
worry about
totally.
that with our quarterback, and you don't want to have that happen to Baltimore because look, I know he can run and he can do some great. He's very athletic, but these guys in the NFL, they are big and they are bad and they are mean and they'll put you on your butt.
Yeah. Well, and I'd also say, um, if I was Kyler or not Kyler Murray, if I was, I'll talk about him next. If
Yeah,
I was Lamar Jackson, one of the things I would do is I honestly would give Michael Vick and Robert Griffin a phone call and
yeah,
ask them about running and the mistakes and when they probably should have stayed in the pocket. And I would just let the people who have been there and done that and suffered both success and failure in a very similar role that Lamar is being put in. And I would take that and I would apply that to myself on the field. Obviously your coach is going to have his own things he wants you to do, but
sure.
I want to know from the people that had all the hype, and I want to know from the best. And I've always said, look, you can not like things about Vic, but I mean, you can't deny Vic plays some ball. The dude was a baller, you know.
Right. I mean, look, and if you don't like Michael Vick, it's probably because of the whole dogfighting thing. And I've on other shows, I've given my take on that. He paid his debt to society, and by all accounts, and he played here in Philly, and I can talk to a lot about how. And I was not a Michael Vick guy. I did not like him at all when he was in Atlanta. At all before, I wasn't a fan of his style. And then with what happened with him off the field, I was not a fan. And then, he won me over. And I feel like I'm a touch on the stubborn side. It can be a little tough to win me over. And he did.
I've never heard of someone from Philly being stubborn ever.
I know. It's not like we did anything to warrant that. Like we never threw any
I've
snowballs.
only I've heard that first of all, the gel in the bottom of the stadium is a myth. I've heard that everybody in Philly is a unicorn.
Oh, by the way, that jail is very real. The
Oh no,
unicorn
I know.
I can't talk about.
My
But that
mic
jail
doesn't have
thing's
the
very
word
real.
sarcasm on it, but it should, and it should be blinking really bright right now.
Hey, I definitely got the unicorn horn going. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. I heard Michael Vick today. I was watching an interview with him, and one of the things he said today was Kyler Murray should model his game after the Eagles version of him. I thought it was a very interesting comment. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that would be a smart play for him. Because Michael Vick was, when he came to Philly, he was not just a Mister Run around and create everything with his legs. Like, he bought time with his legs, but it was more to make throws down the field. And that's what Kyler Murray's going to have to do. He's going to have to use his athleticism to buy time for the other playmakers. He's got a pretty good receiver there by the name of Larry Fitzgerald. I think he might be getting a phone call from Canton about 5 years after he hangs him up.
So right now, let's make our prediction on Kyler Murray. Good or bust?
Kyler Murray, I want to root for him, but gun to my head, he's a bust.
I think so. I think people are going to think he's going to because he comes
He's
out of
just
the
not big enough.
program. I think a lot of people think he's going to be kind of like Baker Mayfield. I think he's going to have more of like a Johnny Manziel season. Not the attitude, but
Right.
I'm not quite as fast as I need to be. I'm not quite as tall as I need to be. And I think it's going to show, like when he's on the field, he's being caught like a little sooner than he thought he was going to get caught. I think the game's going to be a little bit fast for him. And I think he's going to be not shell shocked. I just don't think he's going to be as good as people would want him to be. I don't think he's Baker Mayfield, even though he comes from the same system. I think Baker Mayfield has a more generalized feeling for the game overall to me. Mm-hmm. And I did have some negative things to say about Baker Mayfield, but I also thought he would be a success. Kyler Murray, I just don't. It's instinctual, I guess. My instinct just tells me I just don't think he's going to be an NFL quarterback very long.
I think you hit the nail right on the head when you talked about the game will be a lot faster for him. And they always say that about rookies. They always talk about the speed of the game. And I've been talked to by some novice fans who've asked me, well, what do you mean by that? And to a lot of them, I'd say, just watch Kyler Murray this year, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Where it's just like there will be a lot of that deer in the headlights look, that whole, this game is so fast. Because like it was one thing when he was at Oklahoma and he was faster than everybody, and it didn't matter. Like he could just run around and make plays. Dude, like a lot of those plays and those highlights of him running around and then making a throw. Dude, in the NFL, you're sacked for a 15-yard loss on that play. Like, and that's just, or you're getting your head taken off as you're trying to throw it, and and the ball's going, hopefully for your sake, harmlessly out of bounds. I mean, like, that's what I think he's looking at.
Yeah, the thing is like I didn't watch his combine. Did he do a combine? I can't remember. He did, right? But it was like a limited.
He didn't throw the combine.
Oh no, he did his own like on the side.
Yeah, he did the. Well,
he did one of those things where I'm like, look, I'm not tuning into that shit. Yeah, he did his own like little gig or whatever, kind of like not Manziel, but who else did that? Colin Kaepernick did his own little like the thing where you don't care. You're like, all right, dude, you twittered your little workout. I don't care.
Well, I mean, it's a senior day. I mean, it's an official school-sponsored thing, but
yeah, you got to be over the age 62.
I hate it. I feel like you come to the combine because you want to compete, and like that, there should be a competitive nature in there. And if I'm a GM or a scout, I'm looking at that, and all those intangibles count. And at the end of the day, this is a competition in the NFL, and you gotta love to compete. You need to my nephew plays hockey, and he asked me. He said, "Eric, what does it take to get to the NHL?" And I said to him, I said, "Dude, you got to fall in love with the process. Everything about it, the practice, everything. You should have to be drug off the ice."
And I heard something when I was
Kyler Murray.
When I played high school football. Mm-hmm. My coach said something, and I was all state and running and all that stuff. My team, like we went to state for us, and we had a really good football team. But the one thing our coach always said that always resonated with us was there's 1,000 reasons not to play football. There's one reason to play football because you love the game of football. Mm-hmm. And I always thought that was a great line because really you got to be almost obsessed to be good against people who want to just, force their will on you. As grown men.
Peyton Manning was one of the all-time greatest, but that guy was meticulous in his preparation. Mm-hmm. And to any young player, to any young quarterback who wants to model a guy as far as their preparation, I would say model Peyton Manning with the way he prepares. Model Tom Brady with the way he prepares. Why is he the greatest? Because he outworks everybody.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch Tom Brady's, his Facebook series, Tom's Life or whatever, one of the things, remember when he's trying to get his elbow right and the guy's like, looks good. He's like, no, it's not good enough. And the guy's like, no, it looks fine. He's like, no, I'm not happy with it. Like he's constantly perfecting perfection. That sounds weird. Like you don't perfection and perfect together, but he's trying to perfect perfection. He's like, look, it's good. It's better than most, but it can be better. And that's the kind of attitude you got to kind of have. It's like the grind is never over until you're done. Like when you're done with the sport, you stop grinding to be better. But while you're there, last year is last year. You need to be better than you were last year. And the idea is to keep going up. Of course, we all think Tom Brady's, obviously, having a model wife, he's obviously de-aging. And we need to tap into that science and find out how he's doing that.
Seriously.
But obviously, Giselle makes him younger year over year, not older.
Another way that Tom Brady and the Patriots cheat. So obviously,
one day we should do scandals of the NFL episode and just go through all the scandals we think that are the biggest freaking scandals ever. Leave your comments below if you think we should do a scandals episode, but it can't have anything to do with the Cowboys, or I will not do the show. But I think that this is to me, it's almost like I know, like it's weird that I'm saying this, being that my team is like really impacted right now, but it has been a low key holdout season to me, really.
Yeah. I mean, with the exception of your team, really.
I know. And I feel like it's not that big. I feel like Dak and the Cowboys will get it figured out. I'm not really worried about the Dak situation. I'm real curious what the amount's going to be, but I'm not worried about that it'll get done. The Zeke is interesting. When Jerry Jones made the move to say, we've already signed another running back, I was like, Jerry Jones has just sent Zeke a message. If you're not going to play this season, we're moving on. We're moving forward. It's all right.
Yeah, and hey, it's just like what the Steelers said last year to Le'Veon Bell. Okay, you don't want to play? Screw you. We'll give somebody else a chance.
And like I said, the dynamic's different because the owner is directly tied to the situation, not he's hearing the dude upstairs and he's angry about it.
Yeah, Jerry Jones, and he's like, well, I'm the GM. let me see what the owner has to say about
Yeah.
this.
So he has
Yeah,
a
the
mirror.
owner's cool with it.
Yeah, he just has a mirror in him, and he's like, "So what do you think?" Yep,
And
that's what
Mayor
I think
Garrett just
too.
walks
We're in
over to
agreement.
the and then he just says, "Hey, where's Amir Garrett here?" And Garrett just walks over and just starts punching everybody.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, and he's like, "So what do we think about Garrett? He's fired. Well, I don't want to fire him yet." And Garrett's like, "Yo, I'm standing right here. Can y'all do this another time?" You know. Uh,
yeah,
uh,
I know your feelings on Jason Garrett are
yeah,
similar to my
so just
feelings about
for
the Phillies
anybody who
manager for
doesn't
the
heard me
Cowboys.
say it, so they know I'm a realistic Cowboys fan, we will not win a Super Bowl with Jason Garrett. Plain and simple. That's my line. When Jason Garrett's gone, and we get someone like a Sean Payton or something, which I predict Sean Payton or Lincoln Riley will be the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. If that doesn't happen, we obviously have the talent. Speaking of which, so what do you think about Aaron Rodgers saying me and Matt LaFleur are good friends now? Like we're friends now.
I don't believe it.
Yeah. I think Aaron Rodgers is feeling the pressure that if he fails with this coach, it's on him. It's not on the coaches anymore.
Yeah, I mean, like he's got to believe. Look, the Green Bay Packers are an organization that moved on from Brett Favre, and like very unceremoniously moved on from Brett Favre. So if they would do that to the guy who is unquestionably their all-time greatest quarterback, what the hell do you think they'll do to you? I mean,
Yeah, it's kind of like you know what it is somewhere in this is psychology, somewhere in Aaron Rodgers' life, he was very hurt by some event in his family. He'll never tell what it is. It'll never be out there. He's obviously damaged goods psychologically somewhere, and it's like he never recovered. Football was his recovery program, and I think you see a lot of that in him. Why he's like got that cocky style, and why players are like, dude, this dude rolls his eyes when coaches call plays and whatnot. He's obviously got a defiant streak where he at some
sure,
point
he's got a chip on his shoulder.
well, and we all know about the draft and whatnot, but I still think something in the family happened prior to the draft. I think the draft was just salt in a big wound. That wounds have always been there, though.
Yeah, it seems too deep. It seems too personal. Like to just be the draft thing. Yeah.
So we talked about Gruden, we talked about Antonio Brown, we talked about Zeke, obviously, we talked about Lamar Jackson. We haven't really talked about. Let me ask you this. That was a good question I saw today. Mm-hmm. Who would you rather have, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, or Baker Mayfield?
Oh,
yeah.
Well, that's good. It's funny because I feel like all three of them are kind of mirror each other.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Deshaun Watson.
Okay. You know what? I'll say because I think physically and talent-wise they're so similar that I'm going to go with the guy I think has the best winning attitude, and that's Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield is a locker room changer.
Yeah.
I mean, Cleveland literally could not have got more of a dog pound style guy than Baker Mayfield.
Seriously. And I mean, this team was at their lowest of lows. They had not won a game. Yeah. They went an entire season without winning a game. They went over 2 years without winning a game on a Sunday.
That parade was no freaking joke.
And Baker Mayfield came in there and changed the culture.
You know what it is? Baker Mayfield feels slighted. And he knows the Browns feel slighted. And they put the slightness together as a quarterback and crowd. And now it's like everybody, including the crowd, has the chip. They're all like involved in the chip.
We just talked about Aaron Rodgers having a chip.
Yeah, not the team. I think the Cleveland Browns as an organization, as a crowd, the grass on the field has a chip. Like there is a chip in Cleveland. The Waves potato chips have a chip.
Well, if you look at the city of Cleveland, you look at that whole area, and now mind you, I have met some wonderful people from the city of Cleveland, and I will never. This may come out wrong, but they don't have any beaches there. They're not close to any big, body of water. They're not at the ocean. They don't have a great nightlife area. Like they are as blue collar as a blue collar town can be. Like they make blue collar towns look over and say, "Damn, that's a blue collar town."
Mm-hmm.
And so like they take so much pride in, in the Cleveland brand, like their sports teams. Like that is when you don't have like those other outlets, you look to things like sports and say, that's my outlet. That's where I garner my pride in my hometown. And man, if their pride in their hometown wasn't kicked in the head a few times over these last few years. And it's nice to see, a guy like Baker Mayfield come in and say, guys, let's embrace that chip on your shoulders and let's go out there and let's start taking the ass whooping to them. And I'm, like obviously I'm a diehard Eagles fan, but part of me is sitting there saying, yeah, go get them, Browns.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not on the Browns are going to the Super Bowl
Oh, no,
bandwagon.
no, I'm
But
not thinking that.
what
But
I will
let's
say
not get
is
crazy
the
here.
next 3 years of the Browns is going to be very effing interesting.
Yeah. You know what it's going to be for the first time in a long time? It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be worth watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham, you got
College
Mister.
teammates.
Yeah, you got Mister A&M on defense. You got Baker Mayfield. I hate to say it, but their only real weak spot is their head coach.
Yeah. Well, and he's unproven. We'll see what happens. We'll get, if he's got a great opportunity, he's got a lot of pieces in place that can make him look very smart.
Yeah, there's something about the Browns, like it's like you're just excited for them. It's like a kid
Yeah.
opening a Christmas present, going, "Okay, I didn't get the Xbox, but Nintendo Switch is pretty damn cool. Let's check it out." Like it's like they're not my team. They're not. I'm never going to be like, "Oh yeah, Cleveland's the best freaking place in the world" and whatnot. But you can admire the fact that in such a short amount of time, and when I say that, meaning you know, they didn't like start edging up winning games. They literally just had a turnaround.
Yeah.
And you can either say it's Baker Mayfield. I personally think Jack Dorsey is really the real turnaround for the Browns, in my personal opinion. Baker is the icing on that turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
But Dorsey, to me, is the real reason why the Browns are different.
Yeah, and this was a team that committed to the rebuild. As a guy who, being a Philly guy, seeing the Philadelphia 76ers go into the triple tank, and that's kind of what we saw from the Browns. They tanked and tanked. And
let me ask you this. So before we close out the show, because we're nearing our time here,
mm-hmm.
do you think if Hugh Jackson went back in time, and remember he was offered the Giants job, but took the Browns job?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think, let's say he went to the Giants, let's just dismiss the Browns.
Sure.
Do you think the Giants would have been better with Hugh Jackson? And what do you think would have happened? Or do you not? Anyway, what do you think would have ultimately happened had Hugh Jackson become the head coach of the Giants?
Well, that'd be an interesting spot. Look, I don't know. I liked Hugh Jackson, but he kind of wore on me some. So, like, part of me is thinking maybe I would have seen him for what he is and just said, you know what, he's fool's gold. What I thought had such potential isn't there. And I think the Giants would probably be in a similar spot than they are now.
Yeah, I think Hugh Jackson is a player's coach. I think he belongs at a player's relationship position, not a head coach, in my opinion. Do I think he can command the authority? Yeah, do I think he can command the authority and play the role of a head coach? Yeah, I know a lot of coaches that could step up in that position temporarily. Do I think that's where his success lies? I don't. He has more of a I think he's just he may not be able to see it for himself, but if I watched him and I go back and I watched Bengals Hard Knocks, which there was 2 seasons of it, he just has a better relationship being closer to the players than being more towards the authoritarian side, in my opinion.
Right. I agree with that.
Yep. So, well, tomorrow's August 1st. Close us out.
Yeah, man. Tomorrow, August 1st, we have the Hall of Fame game coming tomorrow. I hope everybody enjoys it. Get your 5 minutes of good football in before all the scrubs come in. So enjoy that first taste, that first teaser of it. The next week, we get our teams going, unless you're a Broncos or a Falcons fan. All the other teams kick off the next week. And, yeah, it's going to be fun, but guys, we have 36 days to go. So before we kick off for real with Chicago Green Bay in the national opener. So for Landry, I'm Eric. Guys, have a good night. Happy football.